Welcome to the Work-Life Balance Podcast. I am Kara.
And I am Maggie.
Together, we're a power real estate team with the Bajetti Partners in Nashville.
We believe that the hustle culture of today's driven entrepreneur who lives and works in Middle Tennessee
requires balance. Hi guys, welcome back to Work-Life Balance with Kara and Maggie.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Today we have Heather Adams with us. She's the CEO and founder of Choice Media Communications. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. It's so fun to be in person, too.
I know.
It's like a novel concept these days.
You know what? We try not to do Zooms if we don't have to. It's just, I don't feel like you get the communication that's so like easy and flowy. So
I was telling somebody the other day, I'm so exhausted by Zoom meetings. Somebody will be 5 miles down the road and they're like, let's just meet by Zoom. And I'm like, what's wrong with meeting in person? Or like, this feels like it's just a phone call instead of every single meeting being on Zoom.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
I know.
Well, I bet you get that a lot being in the communications and
sure.
publicity space. Everybody wants to do stuff online now because you can. It's a space where you can do
and
a
we've
lot
been
online.
doing it long before the pandemic. Like that's how we've always been. And so that pivot was not as hard for us as a whole lot of people because we had Slack and we had Zoom and we knew how to do all of that stuff. But I feel like now it's like, please let me just like physically
touch you and
see you in person.
Be in your presence.
Exactly.
Because then you feel energy. Like,
yes.
I mean, we're going way off the train, but whatever. But it's like, yes, there's like an energy and an excitement or, I don't know. It's just, you get to know somebody so much better than through a TV
There's
screen.
There's magic that happens in person.
100%. There's conversations you would have in person that would have never been touched on if you were online, just ever. Yeah. But little backstory. So I met Heather at a networking event where she spoke, and she was awesome, powerhouse woman. So immediately wanted to have her on the podcast. So we appreciate you coming today.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I feel like your audience are my people, and the show that you have crafted and the community you have built is exactly my heartbeat. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
So give us a little bit of background about you. Who is Heather Adams?
Oh, gosh, that is a loaded question.
Oh, my gosh.
You gotta love that.
You know, I grew up in Atlanta. I went to the University of Georgia. I'm a very proud Georgia Bulldog.
Okay. The Vols.
Maggie, who do you cheer for?
The Vols.
Oh, the Vols.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm okay.
It's okay. We can be friends.
If you just said Alabama, I would have had a more visceral reaction.
For sure.
But I studied journalism in college and went back to Atlanta and worked in government communications after I graduated. And I did that for a period of time until I met my husband, who is a Nashville native, born and raised. He's like a unicorn. Everybody is like you, Kara, has moved from somewhere else, right? California predominantly.
Yeah,
right?
She's a unicorn. I say it all the time. You're a unicorn.
Are you born and raised here too?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You and Matt are like unicorns.
There's very few.
But when we got married, I moved from Atlanta here and went into the book publishing world and started as a publicist and worked my way up until I was running the publicity department. And I was there for a really, really long time and loved it. It's where I cut my teeth on working with major national media outlets like People Magazine or the Today Show or the New York Times.
Incredible.
Let's pause there for a second. You have a lot of accolades and have worked with a lot of really big brands and a lot of major people.
Thank you.
Amazing. So shout out to you for
Thank you very much. It is not lost on me that God has put me in this place where I have the privilege of serving those kind of thought leaders and change agents. I mean, it's really cool. But so anyway, during the recession, I got laid off. And it was at that time I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I had been killing myself for my job to grow in my career professionally. And my husband looked at me and he said, don't take your next step out of fear. Fear we can't pay our mortgage, fear we can't feed the boys. And you have built this beautiful career for yourself. Like, go and determine what quality of life you want and build your job around that rather than letting your quality of life be determined by what's left in the margin.
Wow.
Awesome.
And that was such permission for me to dream and have a little bit of freedom in what that looked like. And so it was at that time that the beginning steps of Choice began. I first consulted on my own one-on-one with clients, and then I built Choice out of that. So next year in 2024, we'll be 10 years old.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Huge.
Thank you so much. But I'm like you, Kara, I'm a mom of boys. I have teenagers at my house. I'm very grateful for that. I love this season of life with them. And I also, the college sorority I was in at Georgia, AOPI, I advise college women, which is such a mission field and a passion of mine, is mentoring and helping develop the next generation of women. And I've been doing that for 25 years.
Wow.
So that's a little bit of a snapshot of me.
So mentoring is like really your passion.
100%.
Yeah.
And when I launched Choice, it was because I missed leading a team of women. I have an all-female team. And there's something about being able to widen the path and pass the baton backward. You know, when I was growing up and early in my career, I was very ambitious and driven and determined to be at the executive table. But there was one seat for a woman if there was a seat at all.
Yeah.
And so I look back and I'm like, I was, like taking people down to try to get to that one seat. And what I've built at Choice, I'm really proud to say every woman has a seat at the table. Every voice matters, regardless of their position, within the company. And that's not something I had, when I was coming up in my career. And so those are the kind of things, to me, mentoring women, developing, pouring into them, and giving them opportunity. That's such a passion.
I love that.
So amazing.
That's when we started the real estate group. Well, now we have a gentleman, but it's powerful women. Like, just there's something about it that's just, it's so, I don't know. You get to just be you, and you get to fill the needs.
Yeah,
that you
unapologetic about it, right?
Like, loving family.
We shouldn't have to squash who we are to please someone else or make somebody else feel more comfortable.
Absolutely. So is Choice, that is more of it's a PR firm.
Yeah, we're a communications agency. So PR is how we started and what we will always do. But we've grown and evolved. We do branding and strategy. We do social media and digital marketing. We do event activation. We do a lot of communications work outside of just PR, but PR is our bread and butter for sure.
Okay. Yeah. And which is basically social media, or is it going to events?
So PR, public relations, is we are responsible for the public perception of our clients. Okay. So that has a lot of different arms to it. Most people think of it like this. If you open People magazine and you see people in there, it is our job to make that happen. If you turn on Good Morning America and you see, an author on there or a mental health expert talking about something, it's our job to make that happen. So media relations is what people think of predominantly with PR, but that is one aspect of it for sure.
Sure. Yeah. So you're in charge of putting them in front of the public eye.
100%.
Getting them in the
door.
And
how they look in front of the public eye.
And how they conduct themselves and what the brand says about them. Like, what is their brand integrity? What is their brand personality? What is their promise to their clients and their ideal, audience that they're serving?
Making sure they stay on brand.
That's right.
So do you have to put the hammer down sometimes on some of these?
Of course.
I mean, I would love to hear, because when you have, big celebrities that you're in charge of, and I read your rap sheet. You've got some, I love Robin McGraw on there, by the way.
Oh, I love Robin and Dr. Phil. They are some of the greatest people, and they were so good to me. I was pregnant with both of my boys when I worked on each of her books.
Oh my gosh.
And I just have the best stories of being with them out on tour for weeks on end. They are really, really good human beings.
I feel like she probably is how she is. I don't think you probably would have had to put the hammer on her so much. But some people, they are completely different off screen, and then they come in and they have to stay on this brand and don't skew or ruin the brand. So that comes down on you as well to make sure they stay.
Well, and you're responsible for advising them. So if somebody has something that could potentially be a crisis, for example, it's my job to think through every potential scenario and how for them to respond. Or if they want to stand up publicly for something, let's say there's a social justice issue, I need to think through, okay, what are the ramifications of you doing that? What's the potential backlash of that? If they conduct themselves inappropriately in some way that their audience is not going to like, thinking through all of those kinds of things, just advising them to be true and honest to who they are. And that's going to be different depending on the client.
Yeah. And especially if they start going political, then you're like, we don't want to say so much.
I know, and we're walking into an election year, so that's going to come.
There's going to be a lot of control.
People wanting to say what they want to say.
That's right.
Well, and so with a lot of these people, do you help them like baby steps and then get there? Or a lot of the people that you work with, are they already at like a certain level of success and then you come in and help them grow? Or like, what does that look like for your clients?
They're both. Okay. So we have 3 avatars, which are our ideal customers that we're trying to serve. Felicity is what we call our female entrepreneur. She's a personality-driven business. She is the face of her business. She hosts a podcast. She writes books. She speaks. She runs a business. She's likely married with children. You know, she's got 10 oars in the water. Felicity could be somebody who is just starting out. She could be somebody 10 years into her career. She could be somebody really well established and well known. Ashley is an author. I come from a book publishing background, so we work with a lot of Ashleys because we have such a good track record of success with publicity. So book publicity specifically. So we've launched more than 100 New York Times bestsellers.
Incredible. Incredible.
And it's such a gift to be able to serve as a megaphone for those people and the messages that they have in these books. And then our 3rd avatar is Billie, Billie, because it could be a woman or it could be a man, but it's a small business owner and it is brand personality as opposed to the person is the personality. So it's more brand driven as opposed to Felicity is more personality driven. And so we do a lot of branding and strategy for people who are just starting their business or somebody who's experienced a good bit of success, but they've kind of done it in a scrappy way and they haven't had any intention or strategy put to it. And we're like, if you've gotten to here without any intention or strategy, imagine what we can do.
Wow.
And so we bring a lot of clarity and then build a communications roadmap for them. And then there are people that are marquee names that you know the minute we say them, who they are. And they're more, established, and it's maintaining that brand integrity for them and that public perception.
I mean, and how fun to watch. I mean, I think I would just be so I would just get joy from the growth of it. So they come to you not knowing that the potential they have is like through the roof.
It's really fun to watch them and to be a partner with them as they grow their business. Yeah. To start with them when they are not as known and help them build that credibility and expertise and notoriety. It really is fun to do that.
Rewarding. And then you probably see something in them maybe they don't see in themselves. Yeah. And you're able to open that door up open a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I'm just like,
so we have a mission that's really simple. It's we see you, we understand you, we guide you, we make you known. And the understand you, I think, is really important. Because at the end of the day, we're doing 4 things: see, understand, guide, make known. Like, that's why we're in business. And I think it's one thing to be excited about somebody. It's another thing to know what to do for them that's going to move their business, right? The growth and trajectory of their business. If we can impact that, it's a really big deal. So that understand component is really key for us to be able to do that well, because there are people that come to us that we're not good at what they need. Or people that come to us that they're not at a place where they're ready for us yet. So there's a lot of no's that happen depending on the situation. And we want to get them to a place where they're getting the help that they need from the right partner that's going to change that business trajectory.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to take a step back here. So you started this business by yourself, and here you are 10 years later, and you've worked with big names and help people go from start to finish. So how did you scale yourself, and when did you know that it was the right time to start growing your business? And really just how did you get to this 10-year mark? Like, that's a big deal.
Well, I actually started with a partner, with someone that I knew that I had gone to college with. And she and I launched the business together, and she was in it for a couple of years. And then she went out of the business, and I stayed the sole owner of the business. And my hope and intention for the business has always been, I'm like you said, care about yourself. Like, you are so driven, you are so ambitious, you're so savvy. Like, you love to work and you're good at it. And that's how I have kind of looked at it, as like, I love to work and I'm really good at this job.
Yeah.
And so my hope has always been that I was creating an opportunity for other women that was something that I wanted back when I was their age.
Yeah.
You know, something that I didn't have, and like widening that path for them, giving them more opportunity. But the best piece of advice that I can give anyone that's starting out is to surround yourself with people who are better and smarter than you.
We say that all the time.
All the time.
Be the dumbest one in the room.
Right?
You don't want to be the smartest.
Don't be intimidated by being surrounded by people who are better and smarter than you.
Be the smartest person in the room, or don't be the
You
smartest.
want to surround yourself with people better and smarter than you, right? And you shouldn't be intimidated by that. So from the very beginning, I had built what I called my board of investors. And these are not people who are financially investing in me or my business, but these are people who are investing in me as a leader. And so somebody who is really great at finances, because that's not my strength or skill set. Somebody who's really great at HR, because that's not my strength or background, right? Like finding people who were good in areas that I needed advice and counsel on, because I didn't go to school to run a business. I don't have my MBA, but I know what I'm good at, and I have a solution to a lot of people's problems. And so it was taking that entrepreneurial mindset and then getting the right community around me to help me deliver it. Yeah.
That's what we say all the time. You got to delegate. And then once you realize what you're really good at, and you put somebody else in charge of the stuff that you're not so good at, it all flows a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of trying to be a jack of all traits, a master of none.
That's right.
Yes.
100%.
Exactly. Which this might be just a little off topic, but have you heard of the colors test?
No,
Because this
what is
reminds me
that?
about the colors test. So anyway, we talk about this test all the time, but we got introduced to it by Angela Profit.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody has a high color, 2 middle colors, and a low color. And each color is, well, you can probably explain it better than me, but each color falls under certain personality traits, making you good at certain things and others. And the goal is to have one color of every person on your team so that you have like a good balance of what you're good at.
Too, if you want to take it.
Oh, yeah. I would love to do that.
It's very cool.
She said she only hires people based on like their colors and where they can fit in her business based on the colors that they.
That is so smart. We use a lot of different assessments, like the Enneagram and the Colby and the DISC and StrengthsFinder and all of those things. Even love languages really shows you a lot, because when you're managing people, you're trying to figure out like what motivates them. How do they like to receive praise? What's not going to be good for them?
Correct.
You know, and everybody's different, and you have to manage them in that.
Well, for sure. And
way.
that's part of your job as a boss and a leader, right? Is to make sure that you're giving back to those people in the way that they're receiving that gratitude and how you feel, because the way you show love might not be the way that they receive it. And even if they're just your coworker, that matters, because it's going to be the longevity of them at your business or whatever.
I think too, with it being a female team like you have, I mean, we do too, but Ricky, but it, you know, women are some are very sensitive and others are not. And for everybody to have taken that test, I kind of know maybe the way I would speak to you, she would take it very offensively, or vice versa. So it is good for communication.
I love that.
You can't have a bunch of blues on your team.
Well, and utilizing that to identify gaps in the business too is
100%.
So key. You know,
yes.
Oh, I love that.
I will share that with you.
Yes,
that's
a great resource.
Well, we've had we are so off topic, but I love it. But the Enneagram gal that came on, she's written multiple books for the Enneagram. Amazing podcast episode.
Was it Beth McCord?
No,
Jackie Brewster.
Yeah. Incredible. But we've taken the DISC. We've done all the tests.
We did one episode fully on just personality traits, and we both took multiple tests and compared.
Right? Yeah. And you also feel seen and known when you do that personally too, I think.
Yeah. I think so for sure. But that was a little off topic.
That's all right. This is a great conversation.
But let's talk a little bit about your podcast. So your podcast is called Make Me Known, right?
Yeah, it's it's really for those business leaders and entrepreneurs who are looking to take their business to the next level. Okay. And they want to be known in some capacity. For some people, that's their name and lights in the Hollywood sign. For others, there's this audience over here that doesn't know I exist, and I need to figure out how to attract them and retain them. And so it's all of my best resources, tips, tricks, hacks, people that come on that have been invaluable to me in my business. And I am of the mindset as an entrepreneur, when you figure something out, you've got to share, as opposed to gatekeeping and holding it tight to the chest because you're afraid somebody else might know your secret.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I use it as a great platform for sharing with other entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship, it can be isolating and very lonely at times. You're afraid to tell your team this. You're making a decision and there's nobody to help you make that decision. And so I think a lot of times business leaders are looking for somebody that they feel like they can do life with and community with that's in that same kind of season.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you said. You don't need to, I feel like you need to share. Like if anybody ever asked me anything about my history in real estate or anything, I'm like an open book. Like, what do you want to know?
Right.
This worked. Why not give it to you for you to do that?
100%.
Right? I mean, I don't see why people hide those things.
Yeah, there is this really great video that I showed at Sean's event about Michael Phelps, who is obviously the most decorated American Olympian of all time. And he was in the London Olympics, and there was one of his events that he got beat in by Chad Leclos from South Africa. And Chad kind of ran his mouth and said, oh, Michael's never been this, hasn't had this time in 4 years. Nobody can meet me in this event, blah, blah, blah. And Michael was like, I'll show him in the pool. And he came out of retirement and went to the Tokyo Olympics and beat him in that same event. And what I love about watching that event, the Tokyo event, they're in lanes next to each other swimming. And every single time Chad Leclos comes up to breathe, he looks at Michael Phelps. And every single time Michael Phelps comes up to breathe, he's looking at the goal. And I use that as a perfect example about why we cannot be looking side to side, worried about what our competition is doing. Instead, we should link arms with those people. As a young professional woman, if I'd have linked arms with the other women in my company, we'd have had more seats at the table. Our voice would have been heard, as opposed to me feeling like I needed to take those women down to advance my career. And I think we have to quit worrying so much about what's all the noise side to side. We've got to worry about what our lane is and what our specific goal is.
Because everybody's path looks different, and the way you get to the finish line is completely different than the person next to you.
And your middle is different than my beginning, right? Your middle is going to be different than my middle too. Absolutely. So we can't always say it's like an apples to apples comparison. And I think social media really hurts us in that way, because we look at people taking vacations and, doing things that look like they have all this free time. And you're like, how do they have such a successful business? What is it? Why is their business so successful? And I'm over here like treading water. And it's because we shouldn't be worried about
what they're doing.
Right.
And that's why I was going to ask you that, because you are all over social media, right, for you. So what are some ways that you kind of avoid that? Do you just keep the blinders on, keep your lane straight too, because you are
in my own social media? Yeah, I think social media can be such a disruption, right? And so I am in a communications profession. I can't ignore social media. Right. None of us can, running a business any longer, or will be a relic, right? But I think you have to draw really healthy parameters and boundaries around what social media looks like for you that is not going to be detrimental to your mental or emotional health. Right. And so I do it in batching a lot and create a lot of content at one time. And then I draw parameters about how much time I spend on it. Now, over the holiday break, will I probably spend more time on it than I should? Probably so, because I'll have a lot more free time. But it's things like that it's like knowing, okay, this is a particular season. This season, I'm not going to be in it at all because I don't need to be, or I don't want to be because I want to be invested in my family, or I want to be invested in my business. But I think you have to draw really healthy boundaries around and limit how much exposure you have to it. I also quit following people that made me feel bad about myself.
That's a good advice right there.
That is good advice.
I got that from somebody else, but there were way too many times that I was going down that comparison, rabbit trail. Yeah. And I found myself going, every time I see content from this person, every time I engage in their social media or on their platform in some way, I feel less than. And I just had to remove myself from that situation because it wasn't healthy for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of all of what we're talking about takes a lot of self-awareness, and we talk about this all the time because it takes a lot to step back and say, okay, that person actually does make me feel bad about myself. Yeah. That's not always something that you recognize right out the gate when you're
and they're not responsible for my mental health, right?
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and they're probably, half of it's fake anyways. Like, I always laugh, it's like fake book. It's not, it's like such a highlight reel of whatever they think you're going to want to engage in. I mean, I just call half of it just BS. Like,
I know.
I mean, this is they're not really on vacation every single,
Well, that's why I like to try and show on my end, like, authentically who I am. Yeah. And a lot of times that's not going to be pretty, right? Mm-hmm. It may be I don't have makeup on and I'm in sweatpants, or it may be I'm not doing great as a mother that week. There's all different ways, or maybe my business is struggling in some way. Being honest about that, I think, builds so much more relational equity with your community than
I agree on that.
Trying to put on a good face all the time.
Yeah.
Well, people relate.
Exactly.
Of course they do.
It's not always rainbows and butterflies. Like, today's a day in sweats at a soccer game, and it's raining outside. I look like a wet dog, and this is my life, right?
I'll use an example from last week. I don't know if y'all know Hillary Rushford, but Hillary Rushford has had a business for the last 12 and a half years. And last week she announced that she's closing it down. And when she announced it, she was sobbing as she was sharing the news, because it's not what she wants to do, but her business has really struggled. And she was sharing that with her audience. And I thought that was so admirable and authentic of her to do that, because she could have put on a really good face and had some kind of spin on why she was closing down the business, but instead she chose to be transparent. And I think there's such a lack of that people had a visceral reaction when they saw it, happening and being played out in front of them.
For sure. Well, it's really hard for people to be vulnerable, especially in front of, all of your followers, the thousands of people looking at your social media. So hard to kind of break yourself down and say, okay, going out of business because
but I think people connect to that more than they connect to you in a bathing suit on the beach in Tahiti.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
We want to be there, but I think they connect more to businesses are struggling. I mean, the economy's changed. There's so many factors that are going on in real world right now.
Right.
That if you actually approach that, people would connect to their audience more.
I guess that makes you think too, like, is it better for you to be vulnerable and out in the open and authentic up front so that more people are relating to you and engaging with your business rather than on the back end whenever it's all said and done? Well, I guess it's more of a question than
as
a
communications professional, here's what I would say. You have got to build a relationship with your audience before they're going to trust you to do business with you, right? Yeah. I mean, y'all are in real estate. So somebody is not going to be calling you every week to go buy a house.
Sure, right.
But if they trust you, if they have confidence in your ability because they've been paying attention to you, they know you, they feel like they have a relationship with you, when it's time for them to go buy a house or to sell their home, they're going to call you, right? And so it's not something that's one and done. It's over a period of time. And I think that's where a lot of people make a mistake is it's the marathon, not the sprint. And they're looking for the microwavable results, and that's not always going to play out, I
like how you just said that. That was good. Microwavable results. It's funny. Yeah, it's not quick like that, for sure.
It's not, and everybody wants instant success. In our world, that's where we have to do a lot of educating on the front end, because Kara, if I started working with you tomorrow, I would not have you in a magazine or on TV or on another podcast next week, right?
Yeah,
it's a period of time.
Instant gratification, okay?
And that's what people want and assume is going to happen. So we have to educate them a lot on the front end so that we can manage their expectations.
Yeah. I do want to go back just really quick because scaling is something that we've always talked about. And, everybody wants to, well, I wouldn't say everybody, I guess, but most people that I surround myself with do want to scale their businesses to another level. What is the advice that you give to your clients? Like, when does that time look right? Mm-hmm. What should they expect out of something like that? And is everybody scalable? Like, is that even like something that you can scale?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I'll use an example from the pandemic in my own business. So it's March of 2020. I am on spring break with my family in Florida, and I am sitting in the bed of our rental house that we have rented at the beach because literally everything is shutting down around us. Oh, yeah. And I'm on the phone with my CFO talking about what are the implications to choice. And, you know, at that time, everybody's saying, oh, it'll be a week or two. Like nobody knew what we were all entering into, right? Yeah. But I was having to think of, what is going to happen? Because I had so many clients who spoke for a living. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, every one of their speaking engagements is gone, right? They're nonprofits who have fundraising events. Every single fundraising event is gone for the year. And so they're all in crisis. It was the first time in my career, every single client I was working with was in crisis simultaneously, as opposed to one crisis at a time that I'm helping with. And so here's what happened. I was getting calls, DMs, text messages from friends of mine who own businesses. A girlfriend of mine from college who's a dermatologist who owns a dermatology practice. Another girlfriend of mine who her and her husband own a construction business. Like, those are two examples. And they were saying, we don't know how to talk to our team. We don't know how to reassure someone they can come into our dermatology practice and it's safe. They're afraid. So even the people that work for me don't want to come into the office. What do I say to them when I don't even know? So I started just as a friend advising them. Here are talking points for you about what to say to your clients. Here are things for you to say to your internal team. Here are things you need to be doing to build trust and confidence with the people that you're trying to serve. There were people calling me who owned boutiques, for example, and they're like, what do? I have to keep selling to people, but it feels like the optics are really bad. I look obtuse trying to sell people clothes when everybody's in their house locked down. Yeah. So we really had to think through scenario by scenario, what were the right things. And y'all, those were all businesses that I did not serve at that point in time. But here's what I realized. These are people that we can help. But these were people who either we had never gone after and would have said no to because their platform wasn't big enough for us to pitch to the Today Show, for example, right? Or they didn't have those kind of needs, or they couldn't afford us, one or the other. But then I was like, these small business owners need communications counsel. They need advice. They need help in this capacity. And so we built a mastermind group during the pandemic. And that year, I doubled Choice's revenue. Wow. And it's because I started looking at the business in a different way, through a different lens. And it took a pandemic for me to be like innovative. And so much innovation comes out of trauma or tragedy or hard times, right? But what I would encourage your listeners who own a business or are a leader in a business is to think about, when you want to scale a business, where are your blind spots? What's the narrative that you're telling yourself in your head over and over and over again about, I can only do this, or I can only take care of these kind of people, and you're missing a whole constituency or a whole audience of people that you could be caring for because you have a solution to one of their pain points, you know?
Just finding that unserved client and figuring out how to help them.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to take.
And you ask, Kara, can everybody scale? And I think they can. You obviously have to have the infrastructure to be able to do it. It's really difficult to be, what is the saying, building the plane while you're flying it, you know? And there's the whole chicken and the egg. Do I go and get the people to help me, or do I go and get the business first? And that's the $1 million question, right? Yeah. But I think my recommendation is first figure out, like, what's that missing element that you are overlooking, that you have some kind of mindset against or limiting belief, and it is preventing you from scaling your business as much as you could because you're telling yourself, oh, those are not my people, or, oh, though I can't do that for them, or, you know, whatever it might be. For me, it was a whole group of people that I was like, oh, these are not people that we take care of. Yeah. And really, they needed us.
Until they started calling you. And then
they started calling us. And then we reevaluated, and then we started serving those clients.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like a tough, I mean, you really got to do some
introspecting.
Right. Introspecting to see what your blind spots are. Cause
that's right.
I mean, I feel like we live in like all go mode. Well, we've said it yesterday or a couple of days ago on a podcast, like it's the hamster wheel that you just, it's the wake up, rinse, repeat thing, right?
So always trying to stay
you're
caught
just
up.
going quick.
Well, and if you
really
don't
paying
ever
attention.
pause to look into your business and all you're doing is running your business, it's going to be really difficult for you to build anything strategically or well.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. That's good advice.
And that's also why it's important to have the different parties on your team that, support you in different ways to help you.
Yeah, and that are good at things that you're not good at.
Absolutely.
You know, you might not be a creative thinker, and so you need somebody in your community that is. And it doesn't have to be a full-time employee to get, you know, good counsel.
Somebody to have a conversation with.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Well, you and I bounce off like that. Her and I are very similar but very different. She's a green, so she's more of the science and she thinks through, where I am more of the, what am I?
You're very gold, like go, go, go,
I'm
go,
goal oriented. I set my goals, I achieve. But
gold go.
That's good then, that yin and yang with the two of you. Yeah.
She's like, all right, here's what all the big things that we want to do. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the steps. You know, we got to do this first, that kind of thing.
Well, you've got the visionary and the integrator, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so work-life balance is something that you speak about kind of on your platforms as well. So
100%.
What tips do you have? How do you balance? I know you say that there's no such thing as balance, so I'm sure you can go into that too.
Well, it feels very much like we're setting ourselves up for failure when we think about balance. Because when I think of balance, I think of somebody walking on a tightrope, right? Or something teetering, trying to balance it one way or the other. I always say it's like a work-life dynamic. You know, for me, I have like a little step, a four-pronged step that I do. Number one, I determine in a given season what my priorities are during that season. For me in this season right now, I have teenage boys who are very active, who play lots of sports, who I want to be invested in before they're out of my home. And so my priorities really teeter toward them right now, even with work involved, right? Because I don't want to lose time with them.
Sure.
So in your particular season, what are your priorities in your life? Then I look at and I place them on or plan out, okay, how am I going to prioritize them in my week to week? And I place them on my calendar, and then I protect them fiercely. So it's prioritize, plan, place, and protect. For example, Matt and I, my husband and I, we've been married for 20 years. About 5 years ago, we were like, when's the last time we went out on a date? You know, and so we decided we are going to make a commitment to have a weekly date night. That was a priority for us in that season. We planned out, okay, what makes the most sense for us is Thursday evenings. We placed it on our calendar, and now we protect it fiercely. So last week is a beautiful example of this. Last week, one of our boys had a basketball game at the same time we normally have our date night. So what we did is we went to the basketball game, then the boys went home, and we did our date night a little bit later than we had planned. Sometimes we have to move the day of the week it is. But we keep a commitment that we have it every single week. We've been doing it for 5 years. It has been more transformational in our marriage than anything else.
Incredible.
Yeah, right? Amazing.
Having just that weekly touch point with each other. So the way I look at it, I just did last week my 2024 planning. I had done it for the business, but I had not done it for Heather. And I think those are two very different things. If I'm planning with my team for choice, here are our revenue goals. Here are the things we're going to prioritize. Here's what we're going to put in Q1. Here's everybody's responsibility. Here's how we're going to track it throughout the year. Like all of that was built at our strategic planning retreat. But I had not looked at holistically, Heather, what do I want out of 2024? Because there's so much more to me than just work, right? And so I did that last week, and I did a year in review of 2023. You know, my husband had a quintuple bypass emergency heart surgery this year.
Holy cow.
That changed and disrupted a whole lot of plans for our year, right?
Sure.
It also refocused a whole lot of priorities.
My goodness.
and brought some into the limelight that had been neglected. And so I was looking at things like that from this year, things from work, things with the kids. And I was like, okay, what do I want to have more of next year? And what do I not want to repeat? Or what do I want to kind of lessen the impact of them? But I think for me, it's really, you have to look at the given season that you're in. When my boys were little bitty and we were in the weeds with them, there was no way Matt and I could have prioritized a weekly date night, you know? Yep. But our boys are teenagers. We can do that now. And so that's important. And I think you have to reevaluate, and you have to think about not just work. You have to think of your mental, physical, emotional, well-being holistically. Mm-hmm. So,
do you do all that? Are you a vision board gal, or what is
so
your
I've
structure?
done vision boards. What I do is I meet with a mentor of mine, and she and I sit down. It's really helpful for me to have an accountability partner in some way who's looking at it with only one thing in mind, which is Heather's well-being, right? She has fresh perspective and fresh eyes, and she notices things that I may have not paid attention to, or I may think, oh, that was just one time. And she's like, well, here's a repeating pattern. So having a mentor for me, an accountability partner for me, is really helpful when I'm doing that planning. But in my day to day, like, this is not just my annual goal setting, but in my day to day, I'll tell you the best thing for me for work-life balance is the way I time block my calendar. Do y'all do that?
I could tell you were a time blocker from what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it. Like, I do, my evenings are time blocked for my kids. Like, she knows that. Nobody calls at 6 o'clock. That's dinner time for our family.
Right.
We sit down. So I am more of a time blocker when I need to do more of that.
Personal life.
More of my personal life. Because real estate is very inconsistent.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like, tonight we have a listing appointment at 6 o'clock. That's dinner time for my family. I usually would not schedule that, but it's a different situation. But every day is different with real estate. You know, you might have a client that's flying in now, and you got to go drop everything. So for me, time blocking is more about my kids and my husband, and I make that a priority.
So you've selected areas of your life that you time block and prioritize. I think that's really helpful. For me, the way I look at my calendar is, if it gets on my calendar, it gets done. And so if I want to accomplish something, whether that's I want to have a night with my girlfriends, or I want to go exercise. Like, after Matt's surgery, I fell off the exercise wagon and I wasn't moving my body, and it was affecting
everything,
me personally, right? And so I was like, I've got to get that back into my routine, and it's like putting that time on my calendar and protecting it, right? So I look at everything just like I would a meeting. If I need to read a manuscript for a client, if I need to take my boys to the dentist, like, those are all things that I block out on my calendar so that they actually happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, we do. But it just changes so much.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure it
even
does.
Your version of time blocking is very different than mine. Like, I just make a list, like, okay, I got to get this, and this done. And when it gets done, it gets done. Yeah. But it is real estate. There are a lot of times that you're planning to do something, you're sitting at your desk, you're about to get started, and then you get a call and you got to go. Yeah. So it's very variable. So it changes.
You've got to allow for spontaneity.
You do.
Yeah, that's 100%. Good. And you know that about your industry.
Yeah. But it can make it difficult for sure.
Oh, I can imagine.
You know,
Monday
morning, to the end of the week and your list is still there.
Yeah. Monday's always time blocked. We have a 10 o'clock meeting here with everybody. And it's really for me to, like, I just feel like we all need to get the week started on a strong, accountable spot. And so everybody shows up here at 10 o'clock.
Well, and y'all are committed to that, and you're keeping it, and you're protecting that time, right?
100%.
You've prioritized it, you've planned it, you've placed it on your calendar, and you're protecting it. Absolutely. So that's really working. The other thing I would say, especially for moms, is when you are present at home, be present at home. When you are present at work, be present at work. I don't allow those two to really overlap with each other a lot. If I'm at the boys' baseball game, I am present and invested and paying attention there, and I'm not on my phone on a meeting, right? If I'm at work and I'm meeting with a client, I am not doing things for Matt and the boys or worrying about things outside of that particular meeting. I learned that early on when the boys were little and I was traveling a lot, and I would go and I'd be in New York City with a client, and I would check in with Matt and the boys multiple times through the day. Yeah. It was so disruptive. for me because I was like, oh, I really want to be back with them, you know, whatever. And it was disruptive for them. And so I learned, okay, one time a day, having a connection point with them, being invested in that time with them as opposed to being so scattered and running around, and then being present with whatever I was doing with work. It really has helped me a lot to compartmentalize.
That is really good advice.
That's great advice.
And I will say, too, the one thing that I have really caught from guest to guest, and you say it too, not only just woman, but somebody that's been very successful, I've noticed a pattern of every single one of them having a partner that is super supportive of everything that they're doing. Yeah. Like even you in your life and me in mine, but just everybody that sits where you're sitting on our podcast, everybody that's really successful has a really good partner.
That's such a good observation, Maggie, because I can't underscore enough that my husband is more than a 50-50 partner. Mm-hmm. You know, like he is such a great partner. And I mean that word, you know, as opposed to, you know, these people that say, oh, my husband's watching the kids tonight. You know, he's babysitting the kids.
Oh, gosh.
You know, like that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, my husband does the laundry. My husband goes to the grocery store. I do those things too. Like we take care of each other. It's such a partnership.
Teamwork. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you need that support, especially being a female boss.
100%.
We need all the support.
He is the best cheerleader that I have.
I love that.
You know, and he has no desire to be in the limelight. Like sitting here doing this kind of thing would not be his forte. He loves putting the spotlight on me and him being the support behind.
Yeah. I love that. And that's okay. Yeah. No, not everybody's like that. But
well, I'm an Enneagram 1 and he's a 9, and it works so well in that partnership.
Which number did you say you were?
I'm a 1,
You're a 1,
which is the perfectionist, and he's a 9, which is the peacemaker. And we work so well together in that regard. He is like the calm and steady to my storm.
Hey,
you know?
You gotta have a balance, right?
Yeah. Do y'all know what you are?
Go ahead. I was a 7.
Oh, the enthusiast.
Mine's a 7.
That's like the party. You like always a party.
Mine's not a 7. Mine's an 8.
Oh, the challenger.
That's it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were 1 apart. I have to pull my scores out because
And you wing one way or the other too. One way to each side.
I wing to a 7. That's where I wing.
So you're the challenger that likes to party.
Yeah.
And you're the partier that likes to something.
Okay, what was 6?
I don't remember.
That's so fun.
We need to look. Know. I'm not the
fact that you both have 7s and you means your probably work partnership is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, girl.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast.
But thank you so much for coming today.
Of
you
course.
are just a wealth of knowledge, and you've had so much success. And it's people like you that I look up to and, you know, don't want to be the smartest person in the room. So I just appreciate you for taking time out of your day and coming to do this with us.
Oh, my gosh. It's such a gift. And I am just such a fan of the work that y'all are doing and advocating for this work-life balance and the dynamic of mastering how that works together. And, you know, it's like a pie, right? And you know, sometimes you're getting 50%, sometimes you're getting 25%, sometimes you're getting 5% of it, but it's all, the whole thing is the pie.
Yeah. It is. And we haven't met anybody that's mastered the balance thing.
No.
Everybody's got like, it's fun to like how you were saying your strategy is, and everybody's got like a little bit of something different. And if we can take it all and put it all together, maybe we'll get something.
And make it work for you, you know?
Because everybody's got a different story.
That's what we love, though, just hearing the perspectives of other people and seeing how you do it, because copying is the best form of flattery. So.
Oh, that's right. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Yeah, I'll do that all day long.
I love it.
But thank you.
Thank y'all for having me.
You're so sweet.
Such a
Make sure you follow her.
We will link all of this.
Yes, we'll link her podcast as well. And as always, like, share, subscribe. Ours.
All the good stuff.
And until next time, we'll see ya.